What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. You looked for it, you found it. This is the podcast where we dive into the deepest, darkest, murkiest waters with a plethora of legendary guests. I am, of course, your host, your bastard of ceremonies, the numero uno scumbag, Rex Ruger. That's Rex with 3 X's. Don't get it twisted, as the kids say these days. You might also know me as a.k.a. the King of Sleaze, a.k.a. the Hair Metal High Priest, and most importantly, a.k.a. Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. That's right. That is Pops right there. Take one look. Undeniable. You're looking and you're saying, you're right, Rex. It is undeniable. I can tell that you are the son of glam, the front man for the band. Just smoked a few grams, got a million fans. I'm your ice cream man. Mr. Wop Baba Loo Baba Wop Bam Bam. Hot damn. Shazam. I'm feeling good, and more importantly, confirmed, I'm looking good. Pops, we looking good back there? And why are we looking good? That's why. Kids, get it, learn it, use it, love it. Coming to you as always from the luscious Lavender Lounge of Love, joined as always by my good friend Keith Hernandez Puppet, a man who doesn't say much, although I think he does, but I think it's also all in my head. And I might need to see some help for that. But Keith, you ready for another big one here, buddy? This is, of course, the No Frills podcast. You get no frills because you're getting plenty of thrills right now, and that's looking at me. So what more does one need? And if you like what you see, like and subscribe. You know how that's done, right? Got another great interview for you today on Pod Scum. One that I'm really excited about. One of my guys from my main man from one of my main bands, as I like to say. Had another one of these gentlemen on before, man, and they are just cool cats. Isn't that right? And we know something about cool cats. Ah, it hurts to be this fucking cool. It really does. But, you know, it's our cross to bear. So, plus, the other reason you don't get any frills is because I'm almost 50 years old. Got a birthday coming up next month. I don't know how to give you frills. I'm limited. I'm limited in my technological abilities, so to speak. But one thing I'm not limited on is bringing you kick-ass fucking content. That's what I do. That is what I do. And that's what I'm about to do today. I'm excited about today's guest, as you can see. I'm giddy. I'm just plain giddy. And sometimes my guests do that to me, man. Sometimes they just bring out the pure. All of them do that for me. They all bring out pure joy. When their faces come up on that screen, I'm just, I'm transported, man, So, and I'm hoping that will show in today's interview, because these are boys I like right here, man. I like these boys. And we're going to get right into it and chop it up, because here he is ringing my doorbell. So let's let him in and get down to it here. Woo-hoo! Where is my man? I can hear him, but I can't see. Hey, there he is. Look at that guy.
Hey, man.
I'm going to try not to fuck up the name here, man. NAIM CORTAZZI?
Perfect.
Look at that, man. I should have been like a linguistics teacher or something, man. I seem to have a knack for not fucking up people's names. I don't know what it is, man, but I've always been pretty good at not fucking up names.
I tell you what, I've been watching the intros to your past podcasts, and your intros are phenomenal, bro. Phenomenal.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I owe it all, of course, to, I'm the offspring of greatness, so I can't take all the credit, I mean,
listen, that should be like the go-to if you want to learn how to be a presenter. Watch your podcast intros.
Wow. Thank you so much, man. That really means a lot, man. That is some high praise coming from somebody in your position, man. Because I'm just, I literally just started doing, well, before I get into that, for my guests out there, NAIM CORTAZZI from the Fun Lovin Criminals. I mean, come on, man. Who the fuck is better than the Fun Loving Criminals? I mean, who? Who are we gonna say here, Naim? The Rolling Stones, the fucking Beatles? I mean, who are we gonna say here? Come on.
I agree with you, man.
Let's call it what it is here. I mean, come on, man. A cool band name. Now, before I get into that, though, let me tell you, the podcast is very do-it-yourself, as you can tell, or whatever, man. But you know, it's growing. I feel like it's starting to get some legs and start to grow a little bit. You know, the subscriber thing is slow, but I mean, you know, everything today when you're doing it on the internet, it all seems like it's kind of like a you know, a grassroots thing. You know,
dude, listen, all the coolest stuff starts small. You know, when it gets big, it's not cool anymore.
Right. You're right about that. Right. That's right. That's right. I'm keeping it indie. I'm keeping it indie here. You know what I mean?
My friend. So listen, let me ask you something.
Sure, please.
Why did you reach out to me? There's like a million bands, there's a million guitarists. How did you get to me?
Well, I've had Uncle Frank on the show.
Okay. Wow.
I got one message. He passed on to, you know, that I would love to have all you guys on. He passed it on to Fast. Fast reached out to me exactly one time, but I didn't hear back from him. And I realized you guys keep Fast very busy because he plays every goddamn fucking instrument known to man. So I realized that, you know, he probably doesn't have enough time or enough hands to actually probably get on the computer. You guys got him playing the fucking trumpet, the harmonica. You guys actually strap cymbals to his knees or make him play an organ grinder or anything like that?
Listen, he loves it. He loves
it.
He loves it. You know, for years they've been trying to get him to have his own tech. You know, on stage to help him set up, and if shit goes wrong, there's someone there. And he's never really had anyone just dedicated to him. I think he likes being in control a bit. He loves it. He's a nerd, but he's so talented, man. It's such a privilege to be in a band with someone like that.
But to answer your question, I mean, I reached out to you just because I'm a fan of. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the band, and of course, anybody that's going to replace, you know, the great Huey, which you know, I don't know all the circumstances. You know, Frank touched on it a little bit in our interview when we spoke, but you know, some stuff is better left, you know, private or whatever, and you know, whatever the issues may have been or whatever, man. But you know, I'm just such a fan, man, that anybody that's in the Fun Loving Criminals, you know, I'm gonna fucking love.
We see, I'm not only just was a big fan of the band before I joined, but I was also a roadie for the band before I joined.
Right. I think Frank mentioned that too. Yeah, I think he did.
That was well, that was getting on to 20 years ago. So I used to carry and set up Frank's drums and help with Huey's stuff. So as the years went on, you know, they could tell that I wasn't really a good tech, that I was really, you know, I had more things to my bow. I could play a bit, I could sing a bit. And so I got involved in the other projects they were doing. So with Uncle Frank, me and him are Uncle Frank. So we've known each other for a long time. And Huey made a solo album, and I did some harmonies and played some ukulele on that. And then, of course, Fast and Frank did Radio Riddler, and they asked me to join that as a guitarist and do harmonies. So well, all in all, I've probably done 6 or 7 albums involving the 3 of them. Outside of Fun Loving Criminals.
Well, so, now you say you were a fan of them before that. You know, they're obviously a band that's very hard to pigeonhole into one category or one genre. And I know obviously the music world loves to, you know, categorize things and put things in boxes or whatever. They're very hard to categorize. What was it that made you a fan? Like, what was it that kind of pulled you in about Fun Loving Criminals?
Well, you know, they're just fucking cool, man. I mean, why would you not? What a joy, like the coolest band in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I do.
I mean, I never thought I'd get asked. And when they did ask me, I said no, because I didn't know that I didn't think I could fill Huey's shoes, you know?
Yeah.
And I can't, to be honest. No one could.
Right.
But you can be yourself and you can add your own flavor to it. And when I heard Fast singing, I thought, wow, he can not only play everything, but he can sing. he can be the voice of it just like Huey was. So
he can do it. Yeah, I have heard him. He can pull it off.
Yeah, and then for me, I had to real practice my licks, you know, because I wasn't really a lead guitar player. I was a rhythm guitar finger picker and more like a songwriting guitarist. So that was great learning curve for me. You know, so the first couple of gigs were like quite nerve-wracking, but I'm loving it now. Yeah, I'm right in the saddle.
So what was it a matter of when they asked you to join the band and you were hesitant about it? Like, was it just like, you know, intimidation? You know what I mean? Like stepping into a band with such a legacy? Oh
God, yeah, man. Yeah. Oh, so you know, you can be a big fan of a group as a musician, big fan of a band, and you know, in your dreams you might be in a band that is that big one day. Or what if that band asked you to join them, right? Right. And then you can dream of that and think, yeah, that'd be so cool. But what if it actually happened? What have you now got to do?
Right. Yeah.
You know, you're now anything could happen. You could be getting bottles thrown at you on stage. You could be getting a hate campaign on social media. People saying, "You ain't the original guy. You ain't. You're not fit for this. You're not fit for that. You suck." Yeah. So all like the worst outcomes start to play in your mind at first. You know,
sure, that's probably natural.
What kept me in it was Frank and Fast. Mainly Frank, because he lives in the same town as me, so we see a lot of each other. He just never wavered. He was like, no, it's you or no one.
Yeah.
And then when he said that was like, wow, I want to do this to not let him down.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Because it became not trying to let him down rather than me trying to prove myself, for two different things.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
I saw a path to how this could work.
Yeah.
And so when Fast came up to have rehearsals with us, because we've got a studio in Leicester, me and Frank, and we ended up doing our rehearsals. It's perfect for that, you know.
Yeah.
I think he was a little pleasantly surprised, you know, how well it worked. But then it was like, really, like the pressure's not on me. Pressure's on Fast, because he's the new lead singer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. So now you haven't actually done an album with the guys though yet, right?
We've done the EP. So last, I think 6 weeks ago or so, maybe a little bit longer, they released the Roosevelt
Sections. Yes. Yep. So
that's 4 new tracks. And Frank and Fast wrote the music, and they, I think, I did all the guitars in one session basically. So I said to Frank, can you send me the stuff, you know, so I can maybe like, you know, learn the chords and get some ideas? And he went, no. What is it? Come to the studio, we'll do it in one session. I'm like, oh no, you know. So
well, you gotta expect a little hazing being the new guy, right?
Yeah.
It's never easy for the new guy.
No, they played me the stuff, and it sounded just like classic Criminals, you know, from like 100% Colombian, their second album, which is one of I think it's my favorite one. I think it's close, but just variation of styles, and that's what I'm all about. I don't just play one type of music, so I just you know, listened to it, figured out the chords, got some licks, and as I was doing that, Frank was recording me.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm ready now. And he went, no, it's all right. We've got it.
We got it already. Yeah. Well, sometimes that's probably good, though, because maybe he realized, you know, even before you did, that you might be trying to really, you know, really hone it and perfect it. And maybe that, you know, I mean, did he tell you what the impetus was behind that? Did they just want a raw sound?
No, I mean, it wasn't. To be honest, you know, it wasn't all about the guitar.
Yeah,
you know, the Fun Loving Criminal sound it's a mixture of things, and it's not necessarily all about the guitar. So I didn't know how much or how little would get used, but I was just happy to be part of it. And I think one time I got back in the studio and I saw the tracks in the system, and I thought, let me just try a solo on one of them. So I sat there for a couple of hours and worked out solo. And I still weren't happy with it, because there was these like guys next door to us making so much noise. So I blasted them out with my solo. It was like a revenge sound.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, fuck you. That's done now. And then Frank came in the studio and he says, "Wait, did you record something on that new song?" I said, "Yeah, I was listening. It was just a guide thing. The guys next door were making so much noise, so it's there, but there's a few bits in it I like. So maybe you'd like to. We could work on it together." And he went, "No, it's great. I can't wait to play it. That's it." So that's the solo on track 3, "Love You Back," which I'm really proud of. It's cool.
Really cool. Yeah.
It's a good introduction to what I can do.
And now you mentioned earlier about sometimes, and the one thing that I hate when people put art or songs or, you know, any piece of themselves up on a YouTube or any kind of social media, and if it's not your cup of tea, you know, you don't have to like it, and you just keep it moving. But I hate when people go out of their way to run something down or whatever. Are you somebody that looks at that kind of stuff? Like when you put something, you know, like when Fun Loving Criminals puts stuff up going forward, like you said, how people might say, "Oh, you're not the original guy." Do you read into that much, and have you gotten any pushback where people say, "Well, this guy's not Huey"? You know what I mean? This isn't the Fun Loving Criminals. I mean, does that resonate with you at all, or do you just kind of blow that off?
It's a good question, and it's a natural question.
Yeah,
but I've not seen that. It's more like, it's not Huey, but you know, which is natural. You know, he was in the band. He was in the band for 30 years, man.
Yeah.
You know, I get it, and it's like, but he don't want to do it no more. So why should the band just stop? Why, you know, the others want to carry on,
right?
You know, Faster's been doing it 30 years. Frank's been doing it 20 years. Why should their world just stop? Because one person.
I agree with you.
So it's like, people weren't sure what it'd be like, but I think if you, you know, we've done 30 odd gigs now, including festivals. I mean, we did 100,000 people in Poland. Yeah. So if it was going to go wrong, it would have gone wrong there.
Sure. And that's a good stamp of approval.
It sounded amazing, and we just got so much love off that, and more gigs off that. That it's like, there's going to be a couple of people on every time the Criminals post something up, like here's a new tour or we're playing this festival. There's a couple of people that'll be like, "Oh no, where's Huey? Who's this guy? I don't know who he is." But it's just like, well. And that's cool. Check out that concert. And there's 100,000 people that think it sounds awesome. So if you don't want to come, that's no problem.
Right.
You can watch the old concerts back on YouTube. You can get an old DVD, do what you want, but it's just like good for you. But there's plenty of people out there that love the music still.
Yeah, agreed.
And they love the legacy. And I want to respect that. I've been asked to play in it, and I'm proud to play in it. So I'm not going to stop.
You should be.
Man.
Now, was music always, like from a young age, was music always, you know, I not knowing about your upbringing or whatever, but was there ever anything else in any other direction that was on the radar at all, or was it always going to be music?
I wanted to be an actor at first, but I did drama at college, and I was so bad. I mean, like, like it was like you want the ground to open up and swallow you bad.
Yeah, you do.
So that didn't quite work out. I think it's because when I was in primary school, I was in the school play, and my mum saw me, and it was just like, "Naim, you're such a good actor. You're natural on stage." I think maybe I got it confused, but it was like music was always in my family. My dad's a flamenco classical guitarist. My mum chants in the Persian language, you know. So I had this world music. I grew up with that, you know, but I also grew up with some very, like, you know, great singers. Like my mum liked Joan Baez and John Denver. So kind of like, I guess, cheesy, you know, but these things are ingrained in you, you know. I hated that when I was young. It was like, oh, no, I hate it. But as you go older, those sensibilities become part of what you do. So
it's crazy. I know people do always say you're going to wind up listening to your parents' music, even though you run it down when you're young. And you do run it down when you're young. But you know what, though? You know, afterwards, you know, just like you're saying, a certain part of it is ingrained in you, though. You know, I used to laugh at shit my father listened to, too, back when I'm listening to, you know, I'm young and dumb and listening to, you know, thrash metal and all this heavy shit. And, you know, I'm running down my dad for, you know, his Eric Clapton and his Jimi Hendrix. And now I find myself as a 50-year-old man, I love that shit probably more than the music that I grew up with, you know?
Yeah, because it's got those memories attached to it.
That's what it is, right? That's what the music does. Yeah, good music transports you. I do believe that. It takes you back to a place in time, and I think that's the magic of it, you know? It really is.
So, you know, I grew up with an old beat up Spanish guitar in the house. And my dad unfortunately left home. So I just had the memories of what he played, and I tried to learn that stuff without any lessons. So, you know, I took it to school with me. I took it to bed with me. I love this classical guitar. So the music from the age of, say, 14 was my life then. You know, it was everything to me. And I wanted to escape from my hometown. I wanted to transcend and be somebody, just like maybe every musician wants to. But the chances of that, looking back, were just ridiculously low. That it was such a stupid thing to want to, you know what I mean? But we're talking about the early 90s now, you know. So I mean, how I thought that could ever be possible is ridiculous. But I always had a belief that I would be on stages playing to a lot of people.
Well, all you had to do back in the 90s was move to Seattle and get yourself some flannel shirts. I mean, you'd have been fine. I mean,
well, where I grew up, there was maybe one famous band from the 70s called Shawaddy Waddy that had got real big at that time. But there was nothing since them in the 90s, not really. But yeah, I don't know. We had, you know, it reminds me, I did art as well. I loved art, music, and history. But with art, they did this project. It's called A Few of My Favorite Things. And you had to basically paint your favorite things, you know. It's kind of cheesy, you know. So I painted a big dragon because I love all sort of fantasy, Lord of the Rings kind of stuff.
Right.
Drew dreaming because I was a big dreamer. And then I drew in the center of it all is me standing there with a guitar playing.
Yeah.
I think so. That was like a memory board. You know what? Now, what do they call it? A vision board.
Yeah.
Have you heard?
It's kind of meant to be. Yeah.
So it was a kind of that picture was always stuck in mind. I don't know. It's a silly thing. I don't know. I just thought of that, but.
Well, you coming from the UK, you and Frank coming from the UK, do you find that, because obviously that early Fun Lovin' Criminals stuff was very, you know, you can hear it in the music. It's very steeped in that very East Coast, New York type attitude, you know, that you kind of have to tap into. You know, is that something that you found is tough to do with like any kind of like cultural differences? Because obviously, you know, they're talking about driving around and fucking robbing banks and all kinds of, you know, there's a lot of New York type attitude in that music, you know.
But I went to college when I was 18, lived with my cousin, and we became gangster movie nerds.
Oh, okay.
We went to visit New York. We knew every word from The Godfather, Goodfellas.
The classics.
We just became steeped in it. You know, plus the fact we're both Iranian, and most Iranian men want to be half Italian at least. Yeah, they want to be Italian. Luckily, my father's side of the family is Italian.
Oh, so
I feel like I'm part of it, even though I was born maybe on the wrong side of the water, wrong side of the pond.
Right.
I feel so steeped in it that it's like this whole Fun Lovin' Criminals development now feels like I'm Andy Garcia and it's Godfather 3.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good analogy. That actually is a good analogy. That actually fits. So when you first get into music, who were the first real, and I don't want to use the word influences, but you know, did you remember who the first acts or singers or bands were that really got their hooks into you? Like usually somebody has those initial artists that really get them excited.
Oh, sure. You know, Queen. I wanted to own, and I owned every album, and I would, you know, be writing out. One thing we used to do as teenagers, you'd write out the lyrics to songs.
Yeah.
So we'd do that. I'd listen to the charts all the time. But in terms of like playing guitar and songwriting, I think that had to be a singer called Jeff Buckley. His first album. And what I loved about it was so diverse and perfect sounding.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful album. And it fitted my guitar style. So it was picky and strumming up and down the neck, you know, maybe using different tunings now and again, singing falsetto, harmonies. So that's what really put me on to making my own music more seriously.
Yeah. When you look at a guy like a guy like Fast, obviously incredibly talented, multi-instrumentalist, you know, just can do all kinds of shit, and it just seems to effortlessly just move from one thing to another. You know, does it make, I mean, I'm sure the answer to this is yes, but you know, does it just make it so, you know, incredibly easy to be in a band with a guy like that? Or does he have a side to him that's really like, because you say he likes to multitask and doesn't like a lot of help with things? Is he, or is it the opposite? Is he one of those guys that's a perfectionist and kind of rules with an iron hand?
No, I don't think I wouldn't say he's like a perfectionist. I mean,
no.
Fact will listen. He's just got good taste. Him and Frank have just got good taste, and I think that comes from them both DJing. They're both DJ, and they've DJed for a long, long time. So when you're a DJ, you're like you're almost like you're a doctor. You prescribe what the dance floor needs. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I think when Fast hears something, you know, I mean, for instance, I don't know, there's a song called "Got Our Love," and I don't play it exactly like it was played on the record, but then Fast will give it a chance. Right. And hear what I'm doing. And he'd be like, yeah, man, that sounds like Steely Dan. That's great. That's what we wanted in the first place. Right. So that's nice. But then other times he'll be like, oh, no, that's not what we want. And I'm like, okay, cool. They just know what they want. Yeah. Yeah. You know, and they know what they want when they hear it. So I think I can offer them some choices, you know. Right. And so that's nice. They can be producers and they can choose. Because that's what a producer does, you know. Is the guitar is that your main instrument, your only instrument that you play? Well, in my first school band I learned the bass. So firstly bass, and then classical guitar. Yeah. Then electric, and I played mandolin, ukulele, a little bit of keyboard. I'm pretty good with studio production or studio recording. Spent years doing that. And I sing. So yeah, I guess they're the main things. And your friendship with and your inclusion into Fun Lovin' Criminals, you mentioned earlier that it came about because of your friendship with Frank, more or less. I think so. Yeah, I think so. I would say so. You'd have to ask him, but what I can say is that when you've been a professional touring musician, your touring means you're spending 24 hours with that person. Right. All right. And so there's probably 1 million or more guitarists out there that are way better than me. Right. Right. But can you stand to be in a room with them? All day, that's every day. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. You know what I'm saying? So skills can be learned, acquired, and songs can be perfected with practice and effort. Right. But how you gel with other people and how you are, you know, as a person, your kindness, your tolerability, they're things that can't really be, they're made maybe more set into people, and you got to get on the road because it's tough, man. It can be tough. You're in some tricky situations, and that hour and a half on stage is beautiful, and that's what it's all about. But that's a small part of the day. The rest of the day you're with each other. So of course they wanted people that they trusted and they're friends with on tour. Well, I'll tell you what, I would have no problem being in a band with good old Uncle Frank, because we gelled famously in our interview. We shared a love for both boxing and for Prince. And we kind of geeked out over that. He has a Prince tattoo. Well, I loved Prince, but for Frank's love for Prince just over. I couldn't match his love for Prince, but Prince's 80s stuff, I lionized all of that, man. Me too. Me too. He's probably one of the only musicians who ever passed away where I literally found myself having tears in my eyes. I mean, that's how much of a fan I was. I mean, usually a lot of these guys come and go, and you know, there's certainly been a lot of musicians that I've loved over the years that are unfortunately no longer with us, man. But the Prince one, I think, hurt just because, you know, as I said earlier, when songs kind of transport you back in time, or you feel like they're just ingrained in you, or they're part of like the, you know, not to sound cheesy, but like the soundtrack of your life. You know, I mean. The great thing about Prince, I think, is the mystery. There's a mixed mystery and magic about every one of his albums and every one of his songs. You know, let's say you know, I don't know, like Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer. It's, you know what that song's about. It's pretty straight up. But
yes,
any Prince song, it's like, what's that really about? You know, and it can be anything you like.
Yeah, very open for interpretation. Yeah,
sure. He was mystical. It was sexual. It was spiritual.
Yes.
You know, all these conflicting things all in one. You know.
So I'm curious, when the Fun Loving Criminals get together in a room and create, what's the creative process like? You know, does one guy come in with a lot, you know, like you said with the Roosevelt sessions, that you know, that the other two guys came up with a lot of the lyrics in the music? Do you think going forward, though, that you know, that it'll be more of a collaborative process? And do you anticipate, you know, being included in the songwriting and the music writing? And is that something that you want to be a part of?
I think I'd love to be. But I would, you know, it'd have to be just a natural thing that happens. I wouldn't. Right. I'm not the sort of person that pushed that. You know, I think they both feel a bit liberated at the minute. Yeah. You know, after a lot of years of maybe it not being a nice situation for them. So yes, they want to experience that liberation. I don't want to be crowding that out. Right, because it's new for them. Yeah, right. They're getting the chance to spread their wings, kind of, so to speak. Yeah, absolutely. But I think probably historically, and you'd have to ask Fast here, but from what I know, I think Fast will come up with some chords, some beats, the general feel of something, and then Frank will put drums down and maybe get a lot of lyrical ideas, and it will build from there. Yeah. But some of the songs they did, like some of the songs from Classic Fantastic, Frank would just have a riff, and then on the simple thing on the guitar or keyboard or maybe a vocal line, and then he'd put something basic down, and then Fast would then take it over. So I don't know if there's one set way, but I think, you know, if you talk to Fast about it, over the years they've used a lot of old samples from different things. It could be old films or old jazz records, so that might be the starting point too. I do love that. I do love the you know, I do love the inclusion, you know, to a lot of the throwback stuff. That really gives the music a nice you know, gives it a nice nostalgic feeling while still making it very current. You know, I mean, I that's one of the things I've always really loved about them. You know, I mean, of course, everybody knows Scooby Snacks with the iconic you know, soundbite from the Pulp Fiction movie. You know, I think that certainly grabbed a lot of people back when that song came out. You know, I mean, that was huge. Well, me too. You know, it was like you thought that was on the soundtrack. Yeah. Because it felt like it belonged so much to that film. And then when you bought the soundtrack, you're like, how come that song's not on it? I kind of thought that way too. And I'm thinking back a long time now. Pulp Fiction came out in 1994, if I'm not mistaken. But I think I kind of do remember it. It's almost like it's almost like it was expected. Yeah, Pulp Fiction. I think we got it in 96, 97. Yeah. You're wrong about that. Mid-90s anyway. Yeah. 90s. But that was huge. Like, you know, you go to any student's house and they'd have a Pulp Fiction or Reservoir Dogs poster. You had to. Yeah. It was huge, man. So and you know, obviously Goodfellas and The Godfather, that was so huge as well around that time. So the Criminals captured the zeitgeist. Yeah. They captured the spirit of the times, didn't they? You know? Yeah. I think a lot of people probably you know, might have erroneously thought that the Fun Loving Criminals could in fact be criminals. You know, I mean, like I wasn't so sure back in the day myself. You know what I mean? A lot of you know, there's certainly like a lot of you know, innuendos. You know. Well, I used to ask. All the early records, the new ones, have the DeFontaine records, and it's basically. And I used to ask when I first worked for the band. I said, "Fast, what's DeFontaine? You know, it says asbestos removal. Yeah, what is that?" Yeah. And he said, "Oh, that was our side business. You know, removing asbestos." Like I think, you know, maybe some kind of like tax write-off or some like money laundering scheme. You know. So,
So you guys just put out the Roosevelt Sessions. That's an EP, but going forward, have you guys really thought about the way, or let me rephrase that, the format with which or how you will release music? Because this is a very highly debated topic right now among musicians, where you're seeing a lot of people putting out a lot of singles, or you're seeing people putting out EPs. You're also seeing a lot of bands still going the LP route. Is this something you guys sit around and talk about? Because obviously the music business having changed so much, and people's attention span not being what it was, people don't really sit around and really, and I talked about this on here before, really sit down and immerse themselves in an album the way they used to. It used to be, you got yourself good and rip roaring fucking high, and you listen to Dark Side of the Moon, start to finish, or whatever your go-to album was. Now it doesn't seem like people are doing that no more. Do you guys sit around and say, geez, do we really want to do a long play? Do we really want to do 12 or 13 songs when people are just picking 2 or 3 that they like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think in this day and age, people like things in bite-sized chunks.
Yes.
But often you record an album like that. I mean, some of the greatest albums were recorded in a week or in a few days or something. Right. But I think most of the time it's not that way. And if you've got access to your own recording facilities, as most musicians do now, because all you need is a decent computer. You know?
That's true. Yeah.
You start recording in bite-sized chunks. You start doing bits and bobs over a period of time. You get this collection of songs. So I think it's actually quite natural to release the music, do a couple more EPs. I think that's what the plan is. Yeah. Don't take my word as gospel, but I think that could be a nice thing to do, because the problem is that when you release an album, you could spend a year recording it, producing it, easily getting the artwork for it, getting a release schedule for it. Now we're talking 18 months just before that. You release the album, there's 3, 4, 5 months of single releases, and the album drops. And then you do a tour, and that's it. And then you've shot your load, right? Yep. And then you've got to start the process all over again. And then by the time you get to your next album, you've now almost got to start from scratch, unless, but if you've got the constantly releasing things, constantly got something new for people to listen to in the form of EPs or singles, it's a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing. The last thing a musician wants is for track 8, 9, and 10 to never be listened to.
Right.
What I'm saying?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, right? I mean, it's a tough business right now because, especially with people not getting paid, like what their art is worth. Here you put this album together that might be 10 or 12 masterful songs, and then you can't even give the fucking thing away. I mean, Like people are just like, oh, that one is really catchy. That's the one people are going to listen to and gravitate towards. And then nobody ever discovers your quote unquote deep tracks, and it's sad. It really is.
It is sad. It is frustrating, I mean, the thing is, for at least for me, and maybe for me and Frank, we've always got another album coming out. Right. So by the time we release an album, we're already recording or have recorded the next album. Right. So by the time we finish recording an album, I'm over it.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like you kind of. You kind of decompartmentalize, right? You just kind of put that one to bed and you say on to the next project.
Yeah, but I mean, you see, unless you're a hardcore fan, the tracks people are going to be, they're going to get attention, and the ones that get promoted.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so which one do you promote? Because you all have your favorites, and that's a tough one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Now, when we were locked down during COVID, did you find that you were more creatively inspired because everything was locked down? Like, did you find it to be a very fruitful period where you had a lot of time to write and create?
I had a lot of time to play guitar. I was teaching in a college, in like a school of rock, so when COVID came, that suddenly went online overnight. So I had to develop my own online way
curriculum.
Of teaching. Yeah, well, it was cool, but it became like a podcast show, I loved it. I a theme tune, I had sound effects, I had my guitar lined up, I had students showing their work, and I show it back. I loved it. Cool. So I didn't really stop, but because I was sort of making a show each day, I was playing a lot, and so I had to practice my chops, you know. So that helped a lot. Me and Frank released an acoustic EP called the Tiki Hut Sessions, which was cool, man. That was recorded and released in lockdown, and then 2 days ago we just played songs off that at the O2 Arena in front of 20,000 people.
Nice, yeah.
What so you rush. Know, you never know. You know, the things that you create in the worst of times are going to have their day in the sunshine.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you have to look at it that way.
I had a great time in lockdown.
Yeah, sure.
I also got married, you know, so that was a highlight for me, you know.
Are you somebody that has a definitive plan as to, you know, you get a lot of these guys in the rock and roll business who say, you know, oh, I'll drop that up on that stage. I mean, I'll keep going until the wheels fall off. Are you somebody that's ever thought out, and I'm not trying to get the Fun Loving Criminals into retirement by any means, but are you somebody who's thought about, like, you know, your plan going forward, or how long that you will be in music?
Well, as far as the Fun Loving Criminals go, I said to my close friends, my wife, my family, if I just get to do one show with them, I'll be a happy man.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And now I think I've done maybe 30 already, you know, but I don't want it to stop. I love it.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't want it to stop. How would I?
Yeah.
You know?
But I mean, you know, but are you someone that wants to say, though, geez, I don't want to be in my 60s and 70s like Mick Jagger, still dancing around and moving around up on a stage or whatever? I may fancy going and doing something like this instead. You know, is there a definitive plan on down the road, or are you just kind of playing it by ear?
I hear what you're saying, but Mick Jagger's a dude. Have
you
seen that video of him doing his dance routines and training and how?
I'm not trying to get him off the stage, but you know, there are people who think like, geez, this guy is hung on too long. It's stayed too long. It's too late at the party. I mean,
but they were saying that 20, 30 years ago.
I know.
They were told as they were, you know, spoken of as being old.
Yeah.
So, you know, we are old. If you're 15. 16, we're old. You know
you're telling me.
I don't know. I think, you know, there's probably no pension, is there? You know, by the time we're pensioners, I doubt there's anything like the national pension.
You better stash a little bit of it away. You know, I mean, you gotta.
So I don't know. I'll do it. I mean, we did a month in America with the Fun Loving Criminals. It's been a long time since they played there, and I got very ill during that tour.
Yeah.
And you know, I had a collapsed lung, a pneumonia, and I basically came from a pulmonary embolism, which is a blood clot. You know, from traveling a lot and not. I was a bit run down and whatnot. You know, but I sort of battled through it, and it was like, I thought, as long as my hands work, I'm going to play. Yeah. And that's it. You know, so
that's that's actually my day job. I work in healthcare. I work as a nurse. So I'm picking up what you're putting down about the health problems, you know, for sure. You know, I mean, I deal with that stuff every day. So and healthcare over here in America, you know, post COVID is a fucking train wreck. I mean, you know, it seems like people don't want to, you know, be in healthcare the way they used to want to be in healthcare. You know, very understaffed, you know, overworked. You know what I mean? Everyone's just really burnt out. It just seemed like kind of COVID just you know, came along and just, you know, kind of took the wind out of everyone's sails. And I think it made people a little bit skittish, you know, into taking that dive into saying, geez, I'm going to make healthcare a career. You know, I think it scared a lot of people.
Well, it's needed because we're about to have the biggest influx of pensioners and people about to retire ever, because the baby boom population is the biggest generation around. So there's about to be, you know, in the next 5 or 10 years, these people are all retiring. And then after that, they're probably all needing healthcare.
Yeah. That's the big thing right there is healthcare. That continues to be a problem even here in the United States. It seems like Canada's got it figured out. I mean, but you know, I don't see how now. How's the healthcare situation over in the UK?
It's I'm very lucky to be British, because when we came back, to be honest, I was nervous about getting healthcare in America, and I should have, and I didn't. I thought I'd battle through it, but if I did, I probably would have been stuck with a bill of thousands and thousands of dollars. Possibly could have jeopardized the tour, which I wasn't going to do. So when I came home, I went to the doctors. They sent me straight to hospital. I spent a good week there. And then I realized it was quite serious what I had, but they gave me some wonderful care. And it was no charge for that.
Yeah, that's nice. That's really nice. Yeah.
They gave me antibiotics. They gave me anticoagulants, which I've got to take for the next 6 months. You know, all free. And this country is so blessed to have that, but it's constantly under jeopardy of being ruined, you know. The politicians want it to privatize it, and slowly they're privatizing sections of it.
Right.
So it's struggling to cope. And just like America, Britain also has this population that's retiring soon. So how will it cope without the help of immigration and people coming from abroad? I don't know.
When you mentioned a couple minutes ago, you have a family. How does that affect you touring, with the Fun Loving Criminals? Have you guys sat down, especially with having, having a guy like Fast who's done this for years, and Frank who's done this for years? Do they have a particular way that they like to tour now? Like, are they hitting the road for weeks and months at a time, or are you guys kind of doing the more like isolated, kind of picking your spots and doing a few and coming home?
That's a great question. I think before I joined, for a good decade before I joined, the band were doing tours, especially in the UK, where they do 3 days a week for 5 weeks.
Right.
So Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Saturday. Everyone could go, everyone could relax. Everyone wants to go out at the weekend. They could think. So when I joined, I presumed it would be like that again.
Right.
But I was wrong, because Fast and Frank just want to gig as much as possible.
Really?
And so a big demand for shows. So when I joined, suddenly there was 2 weeks UK tour, 2 weeks full on European tour, 4 weeks in America. So that was a surprise, but a welcome one, really, because when you're playing night after night, you develop such a strong bond musically.
Yeah, you do. And I think you need that, I mean, because I've interviewed so many guys from bands on here who, talk about, what you mentioned at the top of the interview about having that kinship and having that, it's kind of like a dysfunctional, functional family, so to speak. I mean, it is very much family, and if you don't, I think the best bands are able to really tap into that, familial aspect to it. And really, if you can make that part work, and you can, and usually you can tell. I think when you're looking at a band up on stage, you can kind of tell. Like you look at a band like they're on my mind because they're going to be coming here down the road. But you look at a band like the Chili Peppers, they genuinely seem like they really love being around each other too. I mean, you kind of feel that exuding from them.
Sure. You need your space though. You need your privacy and your space though.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
And especially like new young bands maybe don't get that. It's very intense. As you get older, I think if you can get that, then that's a really nice thing.
Yeah. Do you like now, obviously there's been some huge changes in the music business over the years with the digitalization of music and, the formats and, the platforms that it's released on. Do you like all the changes, or are you more of an old school guy that likes a physical product and likes to open up and like look at artwork and read shit? Or do you like all this? I mean, I guess, whether or not you like it or not, it's here and it's inevitable, but just opinion wise, do you like where the music business is right now? I guess there ain't shit we're gonna do about it, whether we do or not.
That's such a big question. I worked in a record store, and in 1998 to 2000, big one. And I spent most of the time reading the inlays off the record and
Yeah,
looking at who produced that, and then I'd just be going down the rabbit hole. Oh, Mutt Lang, who did he produce? Oh, he did Bryan Adams.
Yeah,
he did, you know, then going down there and then checking that album and who the musicians, who's the producer, where did they record it, who engineered it, and I'd be making all these links and really loving all that, and then the internet came, and you could do that so much faster. And not only that, you could go to these people's websites, or you could go to a blog site of that engineer. You could even contact. So it became a wonderful thing. But in terms of music, you know, back then we used to have to send demo tapes off. We'd have to make them by hand, and we'd addresses and names, and it was a real mugs game. You know, you would hear back from these people, you'd get rejected, and if you're from a town like Leicester and you didn't know anybody in the business, you literally had not a prayer, because you have to know people in the business, otherwise they're not going to want to work with you. The people want to work with people they know and trust. Right. And if you don't know anybody, you haven't got the trust or the knowledge. It's a chicken and egg. How do you do it? You're just cold calling. So, what happens is maybe one person gets a break, and you know they crack that egg. You know what I mean? And everyone else can maybe get a piece of it somehow. Or at least in England, what happened was a band would make it, and then it would be a collective. So let's take something like the Manchester scene or the Bristol scene. You know, there's bands like Massive Attack, right? And then Portishead, and then Tricky, all from Bristol, you know. The Manchester scene, you got Happy Mondays, you got the Smiths, Stone Roses, Inspiral Carpets. And so from a scene, you'd get bands. So what's changed is there isn't, or Seattle that you mentioned at the start. Now, because of the internet and because of the globalization of music, you don't get those scenes.
No, you don't. I know. It's sad. I mean, it is nice to have like a platform, and I've had artists on here who I've been fortunate enough to be able to talk to because I've stumbled across their stuff and really like what they do. And, you know, hopefully if this helps get them a few views or a few more fans, you know, and they're willing to come on and do it, and it's advantageous to them. But what I like is going on to like an Apple Music site and searching up a band, and then just based on the algorithm or what you're searching for, you know, the suggestions it'll give you at the bottom. Well, if you like these guys, you might like these guys over here, you know, and it's a nice way to find new music. But I agree what you said earlier, though, about the mystery of artists back then, where you had to comb over shit and you had to read, you know, the gatefold, and you couldn't just go find everything you wanted at the drop of a hat about, you know, who someone is dating or, you know, what band they're going on tour. You really had to dig for that information back then through fanzines or from just word of mouth. You know, you couldn't just go type up and find out, you know, everything you wanted to know about your favorite artist. You know, I mean, it's, you know, I think in a way it has, you know, spoiled that aspect of it for sure. You know, I mean, it's just too easy to find everything you want out.
You know, there are musical scenes, there are musical movements, but what I'm saying is they're not localized anymore. They're not in cities or towns, you know, they're on the internet. So what happens is you could find an artist that has millions of streams on Spotify, and they do a show somewhere and no one watches them because their audience is so spread out. You know what I mean? So it's tough, man. But it's always been tough. So in some ways, it's not changed at all. In fact, there's more opportunity now, but it's still almost impossible to really break it.
I don't think there's certainly not, from what I see on the internet, not a shortage of a huge influx of bands. There's probably more music now than ever, but there's, you know, like we said earlier, there's only so many, you know, minutes and hours of the day to sit down and be a fan and listen to music. And because there's so much of it out there coming from so many different directions, I mean, it's really, really hard. You know, I tend to, when I have time to go listen to music, you know, I'm trying to be better about going and discovering new shit, but invariably you do wind up going back to a lot of your favorites, you know what I mean? And the stuff that you know, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I think the answer is live music, because it's not so easy to change channels and switch over. Sure, you can walk away, or you go in a different part of the club or whatever. But that's when bands get more of a chance.
Right.
To impress.
And you're also not apt to walk away when you're paying the freight on some of these big ticket prices too. You know, I'm not walking out of a concert I just paid $100 or something for. You know, I mean, it's you know,
it's ruthless now. Some of the venues they'll charge the bands, you know, 20% of their merchandise money. Any way they can squeeze the margins, they'll do it.
Yeah, you know? Without a doubt. That's for sure. So when you joined the Fun Loving Criminals, and maybe you had some knowledge of this prior too, but you know, a lot of their lyrics and their songs have certainly, you know, as I mentioned earlier about, you know, driving around and robbing banks or whatever, you know what I mean? You know, what was the impetus? You know, does Fast ever shed any light on what the hell he's thinking when he writes these songs?
I mean, Huey wrote a lot of the lyrics, you know.
Okay.
Fast is responsible for the majority of the sort of music side of things, but I mean, there's no doubt that all the albums up to now, you know, probably Huey wrote a lot of the lyrics for. So
he's the bank robber.
You have to ask him, I guess, you know.
Yeah, so he's the one that was into robbing banks.
I've done some interviews with him. You can see that, you know, about that song, because they get
a lot of it is tongue in cheek, I imagine. You know, it is. Yeah. There's a lot of cultural references in his songs as well. There's a lot of cultural references to people, to events. You know, I mean, he was a smart guy. You know, he used to read a lot of books, and I think a lot of things are from situations, conversations from books and films. But also, you know, he was a big lover of New York and telling stories. Yeah, that definitely comes across, you know, because I'm in upstate New York too. That's where I live. So, you know, I've always been able to hear that. And it's one of the things that's always made, you know, Fun Loving Criminals resonate with me, because, you know, I'm picking up everything he's putting down. I totally get it. You know what I mean? It's not a big leap for me to, you know, to tap into what he's saying, because, you know, it's New York lingo, a lot of it, you know. It just, you know, it's who we are.
And I think that the new stuff, I think it stands shoulder to shoulder with it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, you tell me, that's what I think, but
it's great. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. So what's the game plan going forward now? You just dropped this EP. Is it back into the studio? Is it more shows? And the tail end of that question is, will there be more shows? Because I've never caught you guys. Had the fortune to catch you guys live. Will there be any U.S. shows?
Well, we've just done a month in the US, right?
Right.
So I think the question is, will we be back? Will we go back?
Yeah.
I think we'd love to go back. Yeah. Maybe do it state by state, or go specific. You know, the last tour we did it. It was a lot of mileage, man.
Yeah.
Mileage. I think we'd pick and choose our places where we play. I know the lads would love to do some festivals over in the US, so we'll see. The next step is we've got a UK tour lined up that's probably going to drop in May. We've got a bunch of shows in Europe, in Germany, Holland, and Belgium. Yeah, in April. You know, in the UK we haven't played Ireland yet, and they've got a massive fan base over there. We haven't played in Ireland. We've played in Scotland. You know, there's many places we haven't played with the new lineup, so we'd definitely like to go there. We did well we played in a French festival, and they loved us there, so we're probably going back there. They love us in Eastern Europe. You know, we played this big peace festival there right next to the Ukraine, and it just went down really, really, really well. So we're definitely going back there.
What's the big difference that you see when you're on stage? Because I'm always very curious about this, and like to ask musicians about this. What is it that you see the big difference between American audiences and European audiences? Because I hear from a lot of musicians that the differences are certainly there.
So the American audience, when we went there were some hardcore fans that had been waiting to see the band for 25 years. And so they were the people that were coming to those shows in the States.
Right. Right.
So they were like, they knew all the songs. It was great to play. It was great to play for them.
Yeah.
You know, and I think they were just, you know, me being new and all, it didn't seem to bother no one. You know, they were just happy to see the band and hear the songs.
Yeah.
Because they hadn't had that chance before, you know.
Right.
I think over the years they've had tours that have been cancelled in the US, or for one reason or another it didn't happen. So the fact that we got over there and we did a dozen shows or so, they were just really appreciative. Now in UK the audience seems to be much more like, at least, you know, when you read stuff on Facebook, Instagram, they're much more sort of like opinionated.
Yeah.
A few people can be very much like that, but the shows that we're playing have gone down beautiful. And in Holland even better. In Europe they seem to have a very strong fan base. So I'm loving it. I mean, like I said at the start, I thought the worst, and it's been so far from that. I'm
glad for you. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm trying to think of now. I made just a short list here of some things, maybe some other things that we can introduce into the Fun Loving Criminals and get Fast to do. Can Fast play the triangle or the spoons, or can we get some cymbals on his knees, or maybe I think maybe we could get him some spoons and maybe the triangle. He could probably master that.
Fast is a classy guy.
Yeah,
you know, he's gonna look good doing it. I mean, so he's not going to play like a clown. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you have to give him an instrument that's substantial.
Okay.
You know,
okay. Yeah. He's virtuoso level, right? Yeah. Like we got to give him something harder than those. Yeah. Like that's child's play for him.
Of course, man. You know, that's just making a ting tong, ting tong. He needs something we can actually make melodies and chords. And
so he's that. Yeah. So he's a serious musician. Yeah. He really is. I saw this one clip, and I think you guys were at a radio station or something, and you did the Fun Loving Criminals song, and it was the three of you guys around a table, and he had the trumpet, he had the harmonica. I mean, he was really fucking doing his thing, and I was fucking mesmerized, man. I must have watched.
We didn't even practice that.
I must have watched that fucking 3.5-minute video about 10 fucking times because it just sounded amazing. And at first I thought, how is this going to come out? I mean, you know, okay, guys, take it away. And there's Fast with a fucking, you know, with a horn and a harmonica in his hand. And you're there with the guitar. Frank really was just kind of pretty much just rapping.
Yeah.
He didn't have anything that even made any percussion.
No, it didn't need it. We don't really need it.
Didn't even need it. No, I mean, it was really, and I think that's the fascinating thing about you guys is that it's just, you know, because you can't be put in a box, you know, you guys can just go and sit down and just do, you know, so many different variations of your songs. Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, that's certainly, now, are you worried when you do something like that, when you're in a studio and someone says, you know, hey, do this song, and you're doing it, and it's not in a studio or in a live setting. It's really stripped down, and you know, do you ever think in the back of your mind, God, this could go bad, or do you have so much confidence in you know what you guys are able to do as a band? Because that's a big risk. I mean, I looked at that when that video first came up. I'm like, oh my God, you know what I mean? I love this band, one of my favorite bands of all time, but there's Fast with a fucking trumpet in one hand and a harmonica. Frank's got no drums in front of him. New guy's got a fucking guitar there, man. How is this going to fucking play out, you know? And
Rex, 10 minutes before that, I didn't even have a guitar. I didn't take a guitar to the States with me. We hired one, but I didn't have an acoustic guitar. So I went to the radio session.
Yeah.
And they said we're going to do a live we're going to do this live version of this song. You know, we hadn't practiced. I didn't know what they were going to do, and Frank and Fast just sort of played it off like, it'll be no problem. You know.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't actually practice this at all. Can we practice? But there's no guitar there, so the radio host, had to run home and grab this old beat up guitar that he hadn't played for 5 years, gave it to me, and then I went into the radio studio, and it was like a top radio. I mean, like these beautiful cameras, about 10 of them, every angle. And I thought, oh shit! I thought this was like a little radio show.
Yeah,
you know,
so
there's like really beautiful mics, on every station, you know. So I quickly tuned it up, and then the show started. So what you're hearing there on that radio, maybe you could put a link to it or something in the YouTube.
I will. Yeah, it's incredible.
That's a pure jam.
That is a pure, yeah. I mean, that is a pure jam. I mean, you know, as soon as Fast, you know, puts that horn up to his mouth and that, I was like, holy shit, this is fucking unbelievable, though. Because you don't really think sometimes, man, that, you know, that a band that uses the samples and the different things that you guys use, you know, like when you strip it all away, man, you know, it really goes to show, you know, the kind of chops and the kind of, you know, ability that this band really has. I mean, I
love doing that. I'd love to do more like that if we get the opportunity, and the guys want to do it too. I'd love to do more of that.
It certainly seems like in a lot of that early stuff that Huey was involved in, that you could certainly hear undertones and you know, the influence of hip hop. Is that, huh?
Yeah, big time.
Is that anything? Is that a musical genre that you yourself are into?
I loved the late 80s. You know, De La Soul. I like hip hop with a peaceful, loving message. You know, that's what I like. I like the good vibe stuff that was imaginative and funny and cute and colorful.
Me too.
And then like the 90s came, and it just, oh, God, I started to hate it then.
Yeah, it got very misogynistic, and it got very materialistic. Suddenly, it was about, like, you know, what kind of assets you have. You know what I mean? Like, you got enough bling? You got enough money? You got enough women around? You know what I mean? It started to become really the equivalent of what the '80s hair metal became, where it was just all about excess. You know?
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a good point.
Yeah, and it kind of became derivative almost. You know, it started to feel like everyone was saying the same thing after a while. You know.
Yeah.
And then I think I think it's really been stuck there in that position for a while, and it's really a shame that we haven't had those, you know, those voices that really come out. And I mean, you do get some. Obviously, Kendrick Lamar had a lot to say on that one album, and it was fantastic, and it was nominated for a lot of awards. You do still get people using the platform in that way, but a lot of it just seems like a lot of either that or they're these mumble guys, and I can't understand what the hell any of them are saying. It's too fast for me.
The mum was just so boring, and the music. I mean, like, I don't want to say stuff that I'm going to regret saying, but the thing is, all I say is that I come from a very musical tradition where it's about trying to attain excellence on your instrument. Yeah. Now, if your instrument is your voice, that's all good, all right. But if someone like Kanye West is boasting about being better than Freddie Mercury, well, put them both in a room.
Yeah,
and see which one can entertain musically better.
Yeah.
One of them's going to mumble and rap.
Yeah,
and then if you try to sing, it'll be out of tune. Probably can't play an instrument. If he can, maybe he plays one finger keyboard. The other guy's a maestro on the keyboard, piano, plays a bit of guitar, can sing opera, can do, you know. So for me, I like to try and achieve excellence in that, and I just, you know, wordsmithing is brilliant. I love that, but
it has its place.
It's not on a level that, to me, that's poetry. But if you're talking about musical excellence, it's a different thing. And
it's a stark contrast.
For me, rap's been played out. I'm tired. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's just,
I agree.
To me, mumbling now that why am I going to listen to it twice?
Right.
I turned off after 10 seconds of you moaning, you know, nagging in my ear already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the beat sounds like a 4-year-old made it, and it's just a loop that's,
I agree.
You know, you just drag and drop something off Logic or off Cubase. You know, so there you go. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off. You know,
no, that's all right. I mean, listen, man. I probably stick my foot in my. I probably stick my own foot in my mouth on this podcast with my own opinions more times than I can probably even care to count or whatever. But you know, I mean, when you feel something, though, I mean. I mean, we all have our opinions, and I think you're spot on there. I too like the stuff from the '80s. that made you feel good. And I could even deal with some of the stuff in the 90s when somebody had something to say, when somebody like a Chuck D or a KRS-One or somebody really was really commentating on the social landscape of things and really putting things in context and giving you kind of like the, kind of the man on the street type of, NWA even did it very early on. I mean, it was harsh, visceral, kind of hard to digest, but it was what they were dealing with and what was going on with them. I mean, they were almost like how Ice Cube said, they were like street reporters, I mean, just, kind of giving you, the bird's eye view of what was really going on in the world. And I can deal with that kind of rap. It might not always be the most chipper stuff that gets people on the dance floor, but it certainly has its place. But, in some of the stuff where they're just mumbling about how much Hennessy they fucking drink or how much, how many gold chains they have, or some of this stuff is just, it gets really derivative after a while, and watered down.
But you see, in the UK, we've got a lot of sort of, call them rap derivatives, if you like, grime music, massive over here. I mean, standard grime videos, just some guys outside a council estate smoking weed with their mates, rapping into the mic, and it's so boring and played out, and it's like, I come from nothing and now I'm like going to be the biggest, isn't it? It's like, well, you're not the biggest, and you won't be, because there's a million other people doing exactly the same thing as you.
Exactly.
You're not better than any of them. So,
Yeah, that's the other problem. That's the other problem. You hit it on the head. There's a lot of oversaturation too, because now everybody that can rhyme a couple of sentences, fancies themselves to be a hip hop artist too. So you are getting a lot of,
If it's brought people, working class people, giving them a dream, that's a great thing, and it's a nice thing to start you off. But then you have to get to the acceptance that now you've got to try and master your craft, and that can take many, many years, and you have to humble yourself and learn something properly. Yeah,
absolutely. You
blagging it with just word poetry, it's not original enough. You need to do something else with it, man.
Right. And that's why I always been attracted to bands that seem to do something that's very eclectic, a la Fun Lovin' Criminals, very hard to put into a box. Because rock music does, and I've talked about this before on here, rock music does like to create genres and put things in nice little neat boxes and create subgenres off of the genres, and everything's got to fit somewhere and be molded into something. And there are some bands out there that I really love, bands like Faith No More, bands like Fun Lovin' Criminals, like bands that are just very hard to squeeze into any kind of one box, And I think that's important. You need bands out. You need bands out there like that are going to challenge the market.
But it's lovely being in a band like that, because you never get bored.
Right.
You're constantly being challenged.
Yes.
And you never know what's around the corner, and that's a great thing to have. If you're in a band that has such a specific sound that you have to recreate every time.
Right.
You're going to get so bored of it. But I understand how people need to pigeonhole stuff and how to understand that you need to label stuff in life,
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that if someone can't pigeonhole you, then it's very hard to pitch you.
Right. I see the business. Right. That can be difficult. Right. You're going into like a label and you're saying, hey, this is an alternative band or this is a rock band. It can be difficult with bands like, who are eclectic, because I don't know like what, gun to my head, somebody tells me to tell them what genre the Fun Lovin' Criminals are. I wouldn't know. Would you? I guess I just have to say you guys are a rock band and just reduce it to its simplest form. I mean, at the end of the day, you are a rock band, but then again, I hate just to use that, because then it kind of almost simplifies what you guys do, So
it's rock pop, it's funk, it's lounge, it's hip hop.
Yeah,
you've got elements of all those in, so maybe you could make a new word out of all that. I mean,
I know somebody needs to.
Fast and Frank always like to call it schmooth.
Schmooth, yeah. Smooth. Yeah. That should be its own genre. I think we're onto something here, man. That should be that's a very marketable term too. I like that. Schmooth. And I'll tell you what, the more I'm sitting here looking at you, the more I'm thinking that my Keith Hernandez puppet over there should be named after you. I'm seeing a lot of resemblances over there.
I can't see it because my box is in the way. Oh yeah.
I mean,
I can
right?
see that. It's a bit like Mario.
A bit like Mario, yeah. I have a Mets hat on him, but because over here in the States, I don't know how familiar you are with American sports. I am a huge New York Mets fan. I call him the Keith Hernandez puppet because Keith Hernandez was a player that played for the Mets that certainly wore a fantastic mustache like that. Was known to dabble in, certainly liked his cocaine, which is very taboo in baseball, but. It is what it is. We're all human. We all got bad habits sometimes.
Man, I would love to come to a baseball game. You see, like in England, apart from say cricket, our sports, the game is over in 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
But a game of baseball, how long does that last?
They've recently made changes in it where they've actually wanted to shorten it, where fans were pissed off because it used to be like, someone comes up to the plate. And a guy don't want to pitch to him, or the manager says, I don't want him to face this guy. We're going to yank this pitcher out. But then the next guy, so maybe he gets that guy out, and the next guy that comes up to the plate, nope, we're going to bring in a different guy to pitch to him. Now,
there's so many stops,
right, and then they're always going to a commercial break or whatever. So now they've made a new rule where if a pitcher comes into a game, or a relief pitcher, he's got to at least pitch to 3 guys before they can make a change. So that's kind of kept the flow of it going. But even American football, if you're going to sit down and watch an American football game, you better have about 3 hours to fucking spare because you're going to be there a while.
Oh man, the last leg of the tour, we were in LA, and I got to stay with my uncle for the last night, and there was a game on, and there was like 40 seconds left of the game, and I said, "Oh, don't you want to just because we're going to eat dinner?" He said, "No."
That took about 20 minutes, right?
Yeah, he said, "No, don't worry about it. They'll still be doing it. Let's have dinner. They'll still be."
He's not wrong. Yeah, he's not wrong. And a lot of times you got to make the sacrifice because it is so long. Like I was just complaining to my son last night because I'm a football fan and my team is the New York Giants. Now they were on Sunday Night Football last night, but they started at 8. I got to be up for work at 6 in the morning. You can't stay up till almost midnight and watch these games, and then get up and go to work. It's like they start them a little bit too late, and then you can watch what you can watch. And hey, you gotta. Yeah. I can't stay up all night. For God's sake, I'm almost 50 years old. I'm in bed at like 9 o'clock at night, all curled up like a fucking baby.
But there's people in England that are like, it's real strong football fans. It's part of our culture. It's part of society. But then part of me, and I'm a big Leicester City fan. I love football. I used to play football, soccer. Okay, but you have to realize something. Maybe you've come to this realization sometimes that it's like. It's not you playing. Whatever you think cannot affect the outcome of the game.
Right.
So why get upset by it? Why get too involved in it?
Yes.
It's not you. You know what I mean?
You hit the nail on the head right there. Yeah. I told myself a while ago that I would stop getting so, fucking emotional, and let how my teams do fucking like dictate it. Now I just watch it. I root for my team, but I don't, I'm not like when I was younger where I'm hopping fucking mad and want to throw something through the TV if my team's not doing good. It is. At the end of the day, these guys are doing a job and they don't give a shit that what I'm home doing.
No, they're mercenaries. They're mercenaries.
Yeah.
If it was just like only New Yorkers could play for New York Giants, then it's different. Then it's like, okay, this feels like family. This is really like a community sport.
Right.
Then it's different. You know what I mean? But it's not that anymore, is it? They're all money grabbers, and
Yeah, they really are.
Stupid. There's a lot of money involved. It's hard to not be cynical.
And at least here in the United States too, it's really starting to become like a lot of high-priced, multi-million-dollar crybabies, because now they're literally just always looking for just throw a flag, call a penalty, throwing their arms up, it's a lot of complaining, and it really ruins the flow of a lot of these games. It's hard to sit down and just watch these grown men just being crybabies. I harken back to when I watched football as a kid, and I think the metal of the guys back then was certainly a lot tougher. The guys didn't bitch and bellyache as much. They were gamers, so to speak. They were, they put the uniform on and they suited up and they went out there. Injuries be damned, or whatever problems they got going on, off the field. That shit didn't matter.
Well, the thing is, I don't know about American football or baseball, but in soccer, a lot of our big players become bigger than the managers.
Yes.
And so managers get paid less than their star players.
That happens here.
As soon as they lose their voice, then it's screwed then, you know. So a big team like Man United or Chelsea can just churn over managers season by season. And so the players just get even more powerful through that. You know? So, you know, now they're talking about having a European Super League where it's just the perpetual same teams, you know, become more successful than they already have been, which sucks, you know.
Right.
But I love my team, Leicester City, because we beat all the odds, you know. And it's for Frank's music story, for my music story, we beat all the odds.
Absolutely.
Some slice of the pie, you know. And so in 2014-15, Leicester City 5,000 to 1 odds. They won, you know, and they beat all these big wigs. You know, I think there's many times we played teams who had one player which cost more than our entire squad. Salary cap stuff. I mean, it was beautiful. That made me think there is a God.
Yes, there is a God, and he's a fan of Leicester football teams. Hey, maybe he's from Leicester. Who knows? I mean, you know, I mean, he's obviously got a fondness for. I thought the same way too. In 2007 and 2012, me being a Giants fan, you know, we went to the Super Bowl both of those years, and we went up against the New England Patriots, who were led by the mighty Tom Brady. You know, I mean, who's obviously a huge, huge star over here. And one of those guys who just, you know, he gets to the big games and he wins them. You know what I mean? So us winning those 2 Super Bowls and particularly beating him is very satisfying. It's just like you said about the odds not being in your favor. You know, either one of those years, we were not supposed to beat him. You know, I mean.
Yeah, and there was, I bet the media at the time was all behind Tom Brady, right?
Of course, yeah. And he's still playing. He's still playing now, and he's in his mid-40s. And I think he's starting to kind of hit the other side of the slope, though, a little bit, because he's not playing on that high level anymore. So, you know.
Has he just been wrecked as well? Because he was endorsing that crypto company that blew up.
Yeah, that, and he's going through a pretty publicized divorce over here. So I don't know. Maybe he played another season to get his mind off of that. You know, boo-hoo, his supermodel wife is leaving him. I mean, you know, all of us should have the problems that Tom Brady has. You know, it must be tough having supermodels walking out of your life and being worth fucking millions of dollars. And
has he got many years in him?
Huh?
Has he got many years left in him?
Well, I mean, judging by how he's doing, like this year, you know, as I said, it looks like he's kind of coming to the other side of the mountain and starting to go downhill. I mean, at 45 years old, I mean, who the hell can do what you did 20 years ago? You know, I mean, it's hard, you know.
But then he could be he could be a coach, he could be a pundit, couldn't he?
He's certainly got options, and he's a good-looking guy and very articulate. I'm sure he'll get into coaching or broadcasting or something. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly not going to be any you know, problem, you know, kind of segueing into another career. I mean, you know, I'm sure he'll be fine. But so what's next for the football team? No, the football team that you're a fan of now. What's how are they? Is it soccer season over there right now?
Yeah, it's been interrupted by the World Cup, but it's going to start full on next week again.
And do you have a good team? And do you have a good team? Are you optimistic about your season?
Leicester lost the first 8 or 9 games of the season, so
that's not a great start.
No, but then we came back and we won a bunch of games, and now we're mid-table. So being a Leicester fan's great because there's so many ups and downs. It's like a roller coaster. It's like it's much better than being a fan of a team that never wins anything but never really loses too much either. But Leicester is like we've now won almost everything domestically, so and that's all happened in the last few years. So it's been a great time to be a Leicester fan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I want to ask you in closing, because I've been adding this little segment at the end here, like, just to kind of eventually compile all these, hopefully, and you know, maybe put together a collection of them or whatever. But the best piece of advice you've ever been given. It doesn't even got to be about music. Just, you know, any life advice that, you know, that you've been told that, you know, that you've applied to your own life, or that really struck a chord with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to rob this off Yellowstone. Okay,
Sure.
but it's told to me when I was young, and I think it applies especially to artists and musicians. And that piece of advice is, don't think you deserve anything.
Amen to that. You're right. Yeah, yeah.
You don't deserve anything. What you wrote the song, so does that mean you deserve to be famous or successful with it? No.
Right.
Yeah, join the queue.
Yeah.
So you've learned a few chords. Well done. Now what?
Yeah. I wrote the song, so I deserve to be in an ivory tower filled with money. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, well, you keep going up. You made an album. Oh, so you did a tour. So you were on this record label, that label. You know, I still try and keep to that now, that I don't deserve anything. So, you know, appreciate what you have and try and keep working hard and keep good relationships with people.
And that is such a good piece of advice that I think from now on, man, I'm going to split time between him being the Keith Hernandez puppet and sometimes the NAIM CORTAZZI puppet. because I do see a resemblance. I do see a resemblance. I mean, look at that. I mean, you know, you take the ball cap off him, dude, and he's you. I mean, he really is.
I'll take that, man.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, I mean, I really appreciate you doing this, man, and being so generous with your time. I could sit here and fucking chop it up with you all fucking night, man. It's just, it's really easy and fun talking to you. And hopefully we can do this again. We can keep in touch and do this again sometime.
I'd love to, man. And listen, thanks for putting this together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for doing it
yourself to make a great show, man. I hope more and more people get to see what you're doing. I
appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I appreciate the kind words at the top of the interview, and I'm glad that it's resonated with people. You know, especially people in the arts and entertainment field, because that's really my bread and butter. That's really who comes on the show a lot. And you know, I look at it like, you know, even on a small scale, you know, if 100 people watch the episode and 25 of them become brand new fans of the Fun Loving Criminals, maybe those 25 go out and tell, you know, each of them 25 people go out and tell 10,000 people, you know, how great you guys are. You know, there's really no end to it. You know, it really is social networking. You know, you just never really know how far your reach is going to extend, you know?
That's it, man. I mean, I put in the Screaming Trees, and then your interview with that guy come up.
First one. I know. It's great. I know. I was so proud of that. Well, I mean, listen, NAIM, it was really fun talking to you, man. And please stay in touch, and let's definitely do this again, brother.
Anytime, man. Just give me another shout, and we'll chew the fat, man.
I will do that, sir. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Have a good one, brother. Thank you.
God bless.
Talk to you soon, buddy.
What do I do?
Hang up. The red button. Yeah. Talk to you soon, buddy. There he goes, folks. That's NAIM CORTAZZI from the Fun Loving fucking Criminals. No, the fucking part's not part of it, but the Fun Loving Criminals. Go check out every goddamn thing they do, because they is the shiznit. Believe that, coming from Uncle Rex here. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode of Pod Scum. And remember, folks, to take it easy and keep it sleazy.